Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to our morning Srimad Bhagavatam class at the Bhakti Center. Good morning, Akiko. Andrea, good morning. Bhakti Center Temple Room, good morning, devotees. Emily, good morning. Henry, Pat, Shikshashtakam Prabhu, Susan, Hari Krishna. Thank you so much for tuning in. We have a very special presenter, Yadunath Prabhu. He's a very intelligent, very smart, and very funny devotee. That's a good mix for our morning Bhagavatam class. Look at his backdrop. I think it's too cool. You have to change it. It's too cool, Yadunath Prabhu. Okay, the floor is yours. Let's go.
Okay, all right. Thank you for the opportunity, Nanda Bihar Prabhu, and thank you all for tolerating what is about to come. I assume you're going to tolerate it because I think you know what you're in for since you came here. Okay, just trying to get a few things together here. Let me just start with some prayers. Om Gyanatarandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nityanamane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Kacharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschalchate Shatarane. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vancha Kalpatarubhyas, Chakapa Sindhubhya Eva Chapatitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Okay, I just seek the blessings of all the gathered devotees so that I may speak something other than the nonsense which normally comes out of my mouth. We will read the verse. I'll get the verse up and we can take a look at it. This is, let me see. Here we go. Sorry, a little slow on the uptake with sharing screens and whatnot. So here we go. All right, we're all looking at the verse, right? Yes? Okay. This is King Parikshit speaking to Srila Sukadeva Goswami. 10th canto, 1st chapter, 4th verse. I know everybody's been talking about ramping into the nectar of the 10th canto. And we're kind of still on that ramp, but we're getting closer to what the point is. So, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. I'm going to try to make my way through this Sanskrit. Nivritta Parshar Ubhagiyamanad Bhavo Shadat Shrotra Mano Viramat Ka Uttama Shloka Gunanuvadat Puman Virajita Vina Pashu Ganat. Synonyms. Nivritta, released from. Tarshar, lust or material activities. Upagiyamanat, which is described or sung. Bhava Oshadat, which is the right medicine for the material disease. Shrotra, the process of oral reception. Manaha, the subject matter of thought for the mind. Abhiramat, from the pleasing vibrations from such glorification. Kaha, who, Uttama Shloka, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Guna Anuvadat, from describing such activities. Puman, a person. Virajita, can keep himself aloof. Vina, except. Pashu Ganat, either a butcher or one who is killing his own personal existence. Translation. Glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is performed in the parampara system. That is, it is conveyed from the spiritual master to the disciple. Such glorification is relished by those no longer interested in the false temporary glorification of this cosmic manifestation. Descriptions of the Lord are the right medicine for the conditioned soul undergoing repeated birth and death. Therefore, who will cease hearing such glorification of the Lord except a butcher or one who is killing his own self? Wow. Okay, let's read the purport by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. This is a pretty lengthy purport, so maybe I'll take a break or two in the middle of it, but we'll get through the whole thing here. In India, it is the practice among the general populace to hear about Krishna, either from Bhagavad Gita or from Srimad Bhagavatam, in order to gain relief from the disease of repeated birth and death. Although India is now fallen, when there is a message that someone will speak about Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam, thousands of people still gather to hear. This verse indicates, however, that such recitation of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam must be done by persons completely freed from material desires. Everyone within this material world, beginning from Brahma down to the insignificant ant, is full of material desires for sense enjoyment, and everyone is busy in sense gratification. But when thus engaged, one cannot fully understand the value of Krishna Katha, either in the form of Bhagavad Gita or in Srimad Bhagavatam. This is actually a really interesting point. This is a really interesting point. Everyone within this material world is busy in sense gratification, but when they are engaged in sense gratification, they can't understand the value of Krishna Katha. They can't understand the value of Krishna. They can't understand the value of Bhakti Yoga, in the form of Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam, etc. Ravindra Swarup Prabhu has made the point that the four regulative principles tend to be thought of as principles of morality, which indeed they are, right? We don't eat animals, we don't gamble, we don't engage in illicit sex, and we avoid intoxication. They kind of sound like moral principles. You can see like an old Bible thumping woman wagging her finger at you, don't have sex, don't drink, stop that gambling, all that kind of stuff. They might be okay with the meat eating, who knows? They are principles of higher morality. And we can get into that, but we're not going to. But what they really also do is they empower one or permit one to be able to hear the message of Bhagavat. It's a very interesting thing. While we are eating animals and thereby undermining our compassion, when we are engaging in illicit sex, intoxication, and gambling, these things cloud our spiritual potential. They impede the ability for us to access our real, our true selves. They create a wall between us and who we really are. They create a wall between us and Krishna. So, an outsider might say, you're not allowed to do anything. What's wrong with gratifying your senses? God gave us this world, and he gave it for us to enjoy. And that is entirely true. He did give us the world to enjoy, but not because he wants us to enjoy it, because he knows that we want to enjoy it. We want to exploit this material nature for our own aggrandizement and sense gratification. And our cognizance gets shriveled, it gets reduced. We are unable to think clearly, meaning we are unable to receive spiritual knowledge and understand spiritual knowledge because our consciousness is too absorbed in matter. And the more we absorb our consciousness in matter, the more unconsciously it happens. But the more we begin to identify ourselves with matter, and the more we begin, the more we continue rather to perpetuate the lie that if I can only have more pleasure, if I can only have more comforts available to my senses, then I will finally become happy. It's not true. And an example to show you, you can just look at all the examples that we have, one after another, again and again and again, that people have all the sense gratification that's possible in this material world. People have, a palette of other humans with whom to have illicit sex. Drinking, drugs, all kinds of consciousness-altering substances are available to them at the snap of a finger. They're eating, all the exotic animals, sometimes endangered species, just because it's kind of more exotic. They're having all of these things, and still, many of them commit suicide. Many of them are depressed. Many of them are on antidepressants. Many of them can't function in the world. They're insecure. They have low self-esteem. How is it possible? They have everything that the material world has to offer. So we see this again and again and again. Maharaj Yudhisthira says, it's the most amazing thing, man. It's the most incredible thing that we see it again and again, and we still buy into the myth. So I really appreciate that point of Virendra Sri Prabhu's, just to look at these principles. If you're like me and sometimes you struggle with these regular principles of freedom, as Prabhupada called them, it might help to look at them in this different light. The more I can abide by these principles, the more equipped I am. I almost said qualified, but it's really equipped to understand Shastra and to execute the process of bhakti, because all the obstacles are cleared from the path. I mean, not all the obstacles, but so many of the obstacles are cleared from the path. So at least you can see the path clearly. Because otherwise the path, you don't even know. You ever go hiking, and you're like, is this a path? Or is it kind of looks like there's a clearing there, but you're not sure, and you go down it, and no, then there's like trees and branches and everything, shrubs in the way. So yeah, we're looking for that clear path, and we are empowered by following these regulative principles of freedom from the material illusion. Let's continue in the purport. If we hear the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead from liberated persons, this hearing will certainly free us from the bondage of material activities. But hearing Srimad Bhagavatam spoken by a professional reciter cannot actually help us achieve liberation. Krishna Katha is very simple. In Bhagavad Gita, it is said that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As he himself explains, I'm skipping the Sanskrit because of the length of the purport. O Arjuna, there is no truth superior to me. That's Bhagavad Gita 7:7. Simply by understanding this fact that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one can become a liberated person. But especially in this age, because people are interested in hearing Bhagavad Gita from unscrupulous persons who depart from the simple presentation of Bhagavad Gita and distort it for their personal satisfaction, they fail to derive the real benefit. There are big scholars, politicians, philosophers, and scientists who speak on Bhagavad Gita in their own polluted way. And people in general hear from them, being uninterested in hearing the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead from a devotee. Yeah, it's interesting. A lot of times when people, other than devotees, speak on Bhagavad Gita, there are all kinds of meanings there, but rarely does the glorification of Krishna take place. And it's true that the Bhagavatam glorifies Krishna more directly. There's not a lot of glorification of Krishna in Bhagavad Gita, but that's because Krishna speaks Bhagavad Gita. But he does refer to himself in certain ways, and he does encourage the worship and glorification of the Supreme Godhead. So there's all these, they kind of very often bring out some meanings that may be in Bhagavad Gita and may not be in Bhagavad Gita, but miss the entire point of Bhagavad Gita, which is surrender to the Supreme. They don't address that. They don't address, seeing Krishna everywhere and in everything, and understanding our relationship with Krishna, which is also a big point of Bhagavad Gita. So a devotee, back to the purport, is one who has no other motive for reciting Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam than to serve the Lord. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has therefore advised us to hear the glories of the Lord from a realized person. Unless one is personally a realized soul in the science of Krishna consciousness, a neophyte should not approach him to hear about the Lord, for this is strictly forbidden by Srila Sanatana Goswami, who quotes from the Padma Purana. One should avoid hearing from a person not situated in Vaishnava behavior. Just a quick note on that. I bet I know what each of you were thinking about a minute ago, right? Where is it? Yeah. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has therefore advised us to hear the glories of the Lord from a realized person. Unless one is personally a realized soul in the science, he should not be. And you're all thinking like, well, Yadunath's not realized. Why am I here hearing from him? And it's a very good point. But Srila Sanatana Goswami clarifies here, one should avoid hearing from a person not situated in Vaishnava behavior. A Vaishnava, not situated in Vaishnava behavior. Now, I am not completely situated in Vaishnava behavior, but I am sincerely trying to be situated in Vaishnava behavior. And if we are sincerely trying, and if we make the goal of our life realization of who we are and who Krishna is, then it's okay to hear from that person. So although I would never recommend you hearing from me, you're here and you're listening to me right now. And I just want you to know that it's safe. It's not going to be perfect. And I'm open for corrections and things that I may have gotten wrong unintentionally, but I would not intentionally try to mislead you or say something that the acharyas have not given me. And this goes for anybody else. Sometimes younger devotees give the Bhagavatam class or other classes, and it's okay because our intention is to present Bhagavad Gita how? As it is. Yes. A Vaishnava is Nivritta Trishna. That is, he has no material purpose. For his only purpose is to preach Krishna consciousness. Did I read that already? So-called scholars, philosophers, and politicians exploit the importance of Bhagavad Gita by distorting its meaning for their own purposes. Therefore, this verse warns the Krishna Gita should be recited by a person who is, yes, okay. Sukadeva Goswami epitomizes the proper reciter for Srimad Bhagavatam, and Parikshit Maharaj, who purposefully left his kingdom and family prior to meeting death, epitomizes the person fit to hear it. A qualified reciter of Srimad Bhagavatam gives the right medicine for the conditioned souls. The Krishna consciousness movement is therefore trying to train qualified preachers to recite Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita throughout the entire world, so that people in general, in all parts of the world, may take advantage of this movement and thus be relieved of the threefold miseries of material existence. Yes. We'll get back to the right medicine. Perhaps. The instructions of Bhagavad Gita and the descriptions of Srimad Bhagavatam are so pleasing that almost anyone suffering from the threefold miseries of material existence will desire to hear the glories of the Lord from these books and thus benefit on the path of liberation. Right, as Adi Prabhu was speaking about yesterday, glorifying the Lord is for our purification. We become purified. Two classes of people, however, will never be interested in hearing the message of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Those who are determined to commit suicide and those determined to kill cows and other animals for the satisfaction of their own tongues. Although such persons may make a show of hearing Srimad Bhagavatam at a Bhagavat Saptaha, this is but another creation of the karmis who cannot derive any benefit from such a performance. The word Pashuganat is important in this connection. Pashugana means butcher. Persons fond of performing ritualistic ceremonies for elevation to the higher planetary systems must offer sacrifices by killing animals. Lord Buddhadev therefore rejected the authority of the Vedas because his mission was to stop animal sacrifices, which are recommended in Vedic ritualistic ceremonies. A lot of times when devotees are speaking to their families who may be Christian or Jewish or some religion that it seems that they very openly encourage or allow the eating of animals. They don't realize that they're also, we have this in our own tradition. The Vedas also talk about offering animals in sacrifice and such things. But we miss the bigger picture. And this is in fact one of the treasures that Prabhupada has given us, infusing his purports with the big picture. So even if the big picture is not addressed in the verse that he's discussing, he'll infuse that verse, his commentary on that verse, with the bigger picture. And it's not his own. It's not his own agenda that he's talking about previously in this purport, but rather he's giving us the essence of what it all means. So we're very fortunate that he did that for us. Even though animal sacrifices are sanctioned in Vedic ceremonies, men who kill animals for such ceremonies are considered butchers. Butchers cannot be interested in Krishna consciousness, for they are already materially allured. Their only interest lies in developing comforts for the temporary body. Quote, in the minds of those who are too attached to sense enjoyment and material opulence, and who are bewildered by such things, the resolute determination of devotional service to the Supreme Lord does not take place. That's Bhagavad Gita 2:44. Srila Narottam Das Thakur says, anyone who is not Krishna conscious and who therefore does not engage in the service of the Lord is also Pashugna, for he is willingly drinking poison. Such a person cannot be interested in Krishna Katha because he still has a desire for material sense gratification. He is not Nivritta Trishna. As it is said, those interested in Trivarga, that is, in Dharma, Artha, and Kama, right? Religion, economic development, sense gratification, are religious for the sake of achieving a material position with which to gain better facilities for sense gratification. This is a really easy trap for all of us, praying to God for greater material comforts, more luxury, higher status, higher position, reputation. It's a trap. Such persons are killing themselves by willingly keeping themselves in the cycle of birth and death. Right. So you get that higher position, you get those comforts, those luxuries, then you die, and then you start all over again in a new body in this material atmosphere. They cannot be interested in Krishna consciousness. For Krishna Katha, topics about Krishna consciousness, there must be a speaker and a hearer, both of whom can be interested in Krishna consciousness if they are no longer interested in material topics. One can actually see how this attitude automatically develops in persons who are Krishna conscious. Although the devotees of the Krishna consciousness movement are quite young men and women, actually, they no longer read materialistic newspapers, magazines, and so on, for they are no longer interested in such topics. They completely give up the bodily understanding of life. For topics concerning Uttama Shloka, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the spiritual master speaks and the disciple hears with attention. Unless both of them are free from material desires, they cannot be interested in topics of Krishna consciousness. The spiritual master and disciple do not need to understand anything more than Krishna, because simply by understanding Krishna and talking about Krishna, one becomes a perfectly learned person. The Lord sits within everyone's heart, and by the grace of the Lord, the devotee receives instructions directly from the Lord himself, who says in Bhagavad Gita 15:15, I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. By all the Vedas, I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of Vedanta, and I am the knower of the Vedas. Krishna consciousness is so exalted, the one who is perfectly situated in Krishna consciousness under the direction of the spiritual master is fully satisfied by reading Krishna Katha, as found in Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and similar Vedic literatures. See, that's where faith comes in. Faith is not simply, I believe in God. Faith is, I trust that I will be fully satisfied by hearing about Krishna, hearing from Krishna, and glorifying Krishna, and living my life in a Krishna conscious way. I trust that bhakti yoga, Krishna consciousness, in whatever form you may take, is the best thing for me, and to live my life that way. Since merely talking about Krishna is so pleasing, we can simply imagine how pleasing it is to render service to Krishna, right? Because talk is good, but action is better. When discourses on Krishna Katha take place between a liberated spiritual master and his disciple, others also sometimes take advantage of hearing these topics and also benefit. These topics are the medicine to stop the repetition of birth and death. Again, the medicine. The cycle of repeated birth and death by which one takes on different bodies again and again. The cycle of repeated birth and death by which one takes on different bodies again and again is called bhava, or bhava roga. If anyone, willingly or unwillingly, hears Krishna Katha, his bhava roga, the disease of birth and death, will certainly stop. Therefore, Krishna Katha is called bhavoshada, the remedy to stop the repetition of birth and death. Karmis, or persons attached to material sense enjoyment, generally cannot give up their material desires. But Krishna Katha is such a potent medicine that if one is induced to hear Krishna Kirtan, he will certainly be freed from this disease. A practical example is Dhruva Maharaj, who at the end of his tapasya was fully satisfied. When the Lord wanted to give Dhruva benediction, Dhruva refused it. He said, "My dear Lord, I am fully satisfied. I do not ask for any benediction for material sense gratification. And we actually see that even young boys and girls in the Krishna consciousness movement have given up their long practice of bad habits like illicit sex, meat eating, intoxication, and gambling, because Krishna consciousness is so potent that it gives them full satisfaction. They are no longer interested in material sense gratification. They have full faith. Let me see. Okay. So let's talk for a moment about this medicine business. I'm just looking over some notes here. Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry. Bear with me, please. See, everyone wants to hear about the lives of great people. Everyone praises someone or something, whether it's a politician, an entertainer, a sports figure, or whatever. I am into comedy, so I spend a lot of my time since I was very young glorifying comedians and looking up to them as people sometimes too. And sometimes these, like Richard Pryor is a comedy hero of mine. He's brilliant as an artist, but his life was riddled with with everything that Prabhupada doesn't want us doing, and to an extreme, to an extreme. And he's another example of someone who almost killed himself. So glorifying someone for their work. But whose example in life I don't want to really emulate. So if one is situated in the mode of goodness, one might glorify a philanthropist or humanitarian, or nature, beauty, that kind of thing. If one is in the mode of passion, you might glorify a rock star or an athlete, or the sexual potential of a person's body. If someone's in the mode of ignorance, you may glorify a con man or a gamer or drugs and booze themselves, but most people, they don't want to hear about the Gita or the Bhagavatam. They don't want to praise God. And even us sometimes, devotees are not exempt from this. Sometimes class is the single thing that stands in between me and prasadam, or me and kirtan. So something we're always wanting to hear the glories of Krishna. And then sometimes people ask, I have atheist friends who have asked about this, who is this God that needs to be worshipped and glorified? Does he have low self-esteem? Is he a narcissist, some kind of egomaniac? But no, it's the glorification of the Lord is not for the Lord, it's for us. It's not for Krishna, it's for us. Again, for our purification. It's the right medicine for the material disease because it helps with our remembrance and helps with our attraction. Prabhupada always talked about a relationship with Krishna as sort of like the millionaire's son, right? Who leaves the millionaire and goes and gets lost in the material world and becomes destitute. But if you tell him, like, you're the son of a rich person, let me take you back to that person. So the glorification sort of extends that by way of saying, like, well, okay, he's a rich person, but also he's like this, and he does all these amazing things, and one time it was raining like you wouldn't believe. It was the worst storm ever, and he lifted up a mountain just to protect, his children, and just telling stories and glorifying Krishna and glorifying Krishna's devotees, just running the full gamut. then we become more purified. Then we start to become more interested and like, wow, this person sounds really wonderful, really attractive. I want to know more about this person. I want to, and then some sort of love on some level starts to develop. Like, I really like this person a lot. I love this person. This person is doing so much for me. Gratitude is there. I want to do something for this person. Service comes into the picture, and it grows and it grows and it grows. And the more it happens, the more one does it, you start to feel good. You start to feel right. Like what I'm doing is the right thing to do. You start to feel actually in alignment with truth. Start to feel in alignment with truth, and that feels like I'm situated where I'm supposed to be. As Rupa Goswami has said, when we glorify Krishna, we desire many, many mouths and millions of ears to hear about him. And the example of Vyasadeva. Right? Did you ever eat a meal and you're still not satisfied? It's not that you didn't eat enough. You kind of ate enough, but there's still it's something you're not fully comfortable, and you need something else. So maybe it's that one sweet, that piece of cake, that jalebi, that gulab jamun, that whatever it is. And then, and it might be just like a small thing. Now I'm satisfied because the sweetness is there. This happened to Vyasadeva. He compiled all the Vedic literature. It's astounding what he did. He had more than a 7-course meal, but he wasn't satisfied. So he heard from his spiritual master, Narada Muni. And Narada Muni told him, he said, you've done a lot here, but you have not glorified the Lord sufficiently. And Vyasadeva said, right on. Let me do that. And then in his latter years, his mature years, he wrote the Bhagavad Purana, Srimad Bhagavatam, where it's just glorification of the Lord, and then satisfaction from the glorification of the Lord. So it's good for us to get in the habit of doing these things. That's what Vyasa Pujas are about, right? Glorifying the spiritual master. I remember a Vyasa Puja of Ravindra Sri Prabhu, and my own spiritual master was there, His Holiness Bhakti Charu Swami. It was wonderful seeing the two of them together. They were such close friends. And for as long as I've known Bhakti Charu Swami, he didn't, up to that point, he never celebrated his Vyasa Puja. His birthday is September 17th, which was the day that Prabhupada arrived in America. So he always turned it into a celebration of Prabhupada. It was a Prabhupada memorial celebration, commemorating not his appearance into this world, but Prabhupada's appearance into America. So at this Vyasa Puja of Ravindra Sri Prabhu, I overheard them talking, and it was sort of after Prashadam, and Ravindra Sri Prabhu said to my Guru Maharaj, he said, they need this. I don't think there's any ISKCON guru who looks forward to their Vyasa Puja. It's not like they're getting off on all the adulation. Sometimes it's very uncomfortable for them, and I like to watch them during homages and such. Many of them are chanting. Many of them have their head down. Many of them are just like looking at the speaker with I don't know. It's like a combination of gratitude and bewilderment. This is I get the feeling that they're thinking you should be directing this toward Prabhupada, and in fact, the Guru is taking this adulation and giving it to their own Guru. So Ravindra Prabhu's point was, they need this. They need to glorify their gurus the way we need to glorify Srila Prabhupada. And from that point on, from what I understand, Guru Maharaj changed the way he ran those, and he gave us the opportunity to do that. I'm going to wrap it up here, but I encourage all devotees, if you don't do this already, at least on Srila Prabhupada's appearance day or disappearance day, to write an homage to him. Now, I'm just making one specification here. You could do this all the time to anyone, you know. I'm looking at the Krishnadaya Das right now, Krishnadaya Prabhu. You know him well, you know, write a glorification for him. It's great to glorify devotees, but it's especially great to glorify our teachers specifically. So just as an example, write out an homage to Srila Prabhupada. And, you know, you may attend a Vyasa Puja celebration, and you might not read it. You might read it, but you might not read it, but that's okay. It's between you and Srila Prabhupada and Krishna. And so it's not like written in vain, or it's like, well, I wrote this and no one knows about it. No. The important people know about it. And it's for again, it's for our own heart. So I'm going to write that homage to glorify Prabhupada, to cleanse my heart, to purify my consciousness, and to remind myself of what this person has given me. I'll just close with a brief quote from Prabhupada. This is from a purport in the 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, where he talks a little bit about hearing. Prabhupada says, this hearing process is very important. And hearing and glorifying, they're two sides of the same coin. It's very important. Lord Chaitanya, who preached Krishna consciousness in the modern world, gave great stress to hearing, because if the common man simply hears from authoritative sources, he can progress, especially, according to Lord Chaitanya, if he hears the transcendental vibration, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. He goes on to say, faithful hearing from an authoritative person will help one transcend this material existence and go back home, go back to Godhead, back to home. So thank you for your very kind attention, as I said, for tolerating. And there's a couple minutes if anyone has a comment, or as I said before, a correction, please do so now. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Yadunath Prabhu, beautiful class. So dear devotees, if you have questions, comments, take advantage. We have a great soul with us today.
Yes, Venkata Bhatta is here. I just saw that. Okay, yes. Shikshastika Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. I just was also struck by the beginning part of that purport where you said this is an interesting point about material desires, and you compared it to like going down a path and it's all weeds and branches, and so, and I was thinking of that verse. I actually looked it up before Prabhupada actually stated it in the purport 244. You can't, if you're attached to material opulence and sense gratification, you can't, the resolute determination for devotional service doesn't take place. So besides the regulative principles, of course, that is the basis of sense gratification. What other types of things that impede us on our pathway to pure devotional service? I was thinking for myself, it's just the idea of being the doer. You said every devotee just has to be the preacher. If we think we're the preacher, then that is like a huge impediment because Krishna is actually the preacher. But what other types of, like maybe mental speculation, fruitive activity? Can you name any other impediments?
I mean, all of them. I think everybody has their own specific hurdles to get over. Certainly the ones you've mentioned. And being the doer is really a big one, because if sometimes people are given a gift that is so inherent to who they are in this body, that it feels so natural to the point of, well, this is just who I am, you know. But still, Krishna is giving that ability. I am the ability in man, right? He says. So this idea of no matter how easily something comes to me, I need to remember that Krishna is allowing me to do this, that Krishna is empowering me to do this. Other obstacles, you know, reputation, prestige, distinction, those subtle things. The unhealthy, I'll qualify by saying the unhealthy drive for wealth. Sometimes, you know, devotees, you know, want a lot of money, right? And sometimes they justify it by saying that, yeah, but if I was rich, then I would X, Y, Z, you know, build this temple, give to ISKCON, do this, and that. And I'm sure they would, but I have to be careful if I'm taking that approach. I have to be careful that I'm not also, it's not that I'm trying to fool everybody else, but I'm really fooling myself. Am I fooling myself or not? Is it okay if I don't get that money, but if I do happen to get that money, then I'll do these things? Or is I really want this money because I want to be looked at as a wealthy person, or in addition to donating, blah, 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 I also want a swimming pool and whatever. And again, these things aren't necessarily bad, but they are things that to notice that this is what I have to deal with. So the accumulation of too much money, you know, it's just so many things, almost anything that you can name can be a hurdle.
Is too little money an impediment? Yadunath Prabhu?
Too little money.
Yeah.
Too little money can also be an impediment, yes. It doesn't have to be. Prabhupada would often say that, you know, a rich man can do it, a poor man can do it. It's true. Sometimes, yeah, if we take on too much austerity, which I sort of align with being a poor man, if we voluntarily take on too much austerity, it could be subtly for a reason that will cause an impediment. Like I want to appear like, you know, the transcendental yogi, the austere one. But yeah, I mean, if the basic necessities of life are not easily met, that's definitely an impediment. Like a legit person is worried about where their next meal is coming from, or being outside in the cold because they don't have a home or proper clothing. These things are definitely impediments. So I guess that's all I'll say about that, Shaska Prabhu. I hope that's okay.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Andrea.
Yeah.
Andrea?
Hare Krishna, Yadunath Prabhu. And as I wrote in the chat, Paul, my husband, sends his pranams off screen, as always.
Thank you.
Ever your admirer and friend. One of the things that I just want to reflect back that really touched me was where you explained that regulative principles don't hinder our freedom, they help our spiritual freedom. And just having that mental shift and looking at things that way really helps me, because as a lot of devotees keep saying, you know, when there's things that we can't change, the only thing we can change is our attitude, right? So when there's certain things in our spiritual practice that are part of it, we just have to shift our attitude to it so that they can kind of help us, as opposed to us feeling like they're hindering us. So thank you so much. Haribol.
Krishna. And too often we think of freedom as, you know, I could have this girl or that girl, you know, or I could get drunk or I could get stoned, you know, like you can't tell me not to do it. So the issue becomes like, don't tell me not to do this. I have the freedom to do this. And Krishna gives us that freedom. That's a given. We always have that freedom. But real freedom is to be able to to find joy that is not dependent on external circumstances. So take both those girls away, take both of those intoxicants away, etc., etc., and I'm still satisfied. If I can be still satisfied at that point, when all I have is myself, and then when I find Krishna within myself, then that's real freedom. And at that point, you can engage in the external world. Now, I'm not saying you sleep around and get wasted, but Prabhupada has made the point with regulative principles are for those of us trying to get there. Once you're there, you don't need the principles. Again, it doesn't mean then you go hog wild materially. At that point, you know better. Those things don't hold any attraction for you. But it doesn't become a do not. It becomes a don't want. All right, then. Once again, thank you all. All glories to Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Yadunath Prabhu ki jai.
Hare Krishna.
Beautiful points. You know better once you get there. Don't do becomes don't want. How did you put that? It's really good.
Oh yeah, don't do becomes don't want. Yeah.
Yeah, great. Wonderful.
You don't do this becomes I don't want it.
Nice. Thank you, Yadunath Prabhu, for bringing us closer to that platform today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Okay, thanks everyone for tuning in, for contributing to this class. Have a beautiful day. And we'll see you again tomorrow. Srimad Bhagavatam is every day, like eating. Right? Eating is every day. Okay, Hare Krishna, Yadunath Prabhu, thank you so much.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.